Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. No one would save the exiled creature. So the little girl became its family. In the distant future, humanity had spread its reach across the stars, exploring and colonizing countless planets. Among these was Zara 9, a desolate and dangerous world used as a galactic prison. The planet was home to the universe's most notorious criminals, monsters, and creatures that posed a threat to civilized society. It was a place where only the strong survived, and even the most hardened beings feared one name above all others: Zyra, the exiled beast. Zyra was an enigmatic figure, story shrouded in mystery and terror. Stories of her exploits spread across galaxies, painting her as a fearsome warrior capable of unimaginable destruction. She had once been a protector of her own world, a place known for its peace and advanced culture. However, a cataclysmic event, a war that threatened to annihilate her home, had forced her to make a choice. Refusing to partake in the conflict, Zyra was branded a traitor by her people and exiled to Zara 9. The details of her crimes were known only to a few, but the legends grew over time, turning her into a monster in the eyes of many. Her new home was a fortress built into the side of a towering cliff overlooking a barren landscape. The inhabitants of Zara 9, a mix of human outcasts, criminals, and alien species, had carved out a harsh existence on the planet. They lived in ramshackle settlements, eking out a living in the shadow of the fortress, while the other prisoners and creatures roamed freely. Zyra's presence was marked by an unspoken boundary. No one dared cross it for fear of invoking her wrath. The fortress was a silent place, its corridors echoing with the whispers of the wind and the occasional growl of a distant creature. Zyra's quarters were sparse, filled with relics from her past: a broken sword, a faded tapestry, and a small hologram projector displaying a long-lost memory of her home. The hologram showed a lush, vibrant world, a stark contrast to the bleakness of Zara 9. It was a reminder of what she had lost and the price she had paid for her beliefs. Despite the rumors of her monstrous nature, Zyra was far from the heartless beast people imagined. She was a complex being, burdened with guilt and sorrow. Her exile had stripped her of her honor and left her isolated, unable to return to her people or find solace among the stars. The few times she ventured beyond her fortress, she did so with caution, her presence sending waves of fear through the settlements. The locals avoided her, whispering stories of her past and the legends of her powers. One evening, as the twin suns of Zara 9 set, casting a crimson glow across the landscape, Zyra stood on the fortress's balcony. She gazed out at the horizon, lost in thought, her sharp alien. The explosion features caught the fading light, her silver skin shimmering with a metallic sheen, and her eyes, a deep, unsettling blue, scanned the horizon as if searching for something beyond the barren wasteland. In her hand, she held a small pendant, a keepsake from her home world, the only tangible link to her past. As night fell, a distant explosion broke the silence. A plume of smoke rose from the east, followed by the faint sound of sirens. Zyra watched, her expression unreadable. The planet's lawlessness often led to such disturbances, but something about this felt different. She sensed a shift in the air, a disturbance that stirred her instincts. With a sigh, she turned away, retreating into the shadows of her fortress. Unknown to Zyra, the explosion was the result of a small ship crash-landing on Zara 9's surface. The ship's crew, fleeing from an unknown threat, had abandoned their vessel, unaware that a small stowaway had been left behind. As the dust settled and the night deepened, the surviving crew members scattered into the settlements, leaving the ship and its lone occupant to their fate. In the midst of the chaos, a small figure emerged from the wreckage. It was a young human girl, no older than 7, with wide, curious eyes and a look of fear. She clutched a worn-out teddy bear, her only comfort in the strange and terrifying world she had stumbled into. Her name was Lily, and she had no idea that her arrival would soon change the course of life on Zara 9 and the fate of the exiled beast herself. The explosion and subsequent crash had sent ripples through the harsh landscape of Zara 9. It wasn't often that new arrivals made such a dramatic entrance, and the residents of the nearest settlement, known as the Fringe, were quick to investigate. The fringe was a haphazard collection of structures constructed from salvaged materials and surrounded by makeshift defenses. It was a place where the law was whatever the strongest could enforce, and trust was a rare commodity. The inhabitants, a motley mix of humans and aliens, cautiously approached the crash site. Among them was an old trader named Harv, known for his pragmatic outlook and keen sense of survival. Harv led a small group of curious onlookers. His grizzled face was set in a wary expression as they arrived at the wreckage. The twisted metal and smoking debris painted a grim picture. The ship had been a small freighter, now barely recognizable under the impact's force. Harv and his group fanned out, searching for any signs of life. To their surprise, they found Lily amidst the wreckage. She was huddled inside a broken section of the ship, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Her eyes, wide with fear and confusion, met the hardened gazes of the settlers. For a moment, there was only silence, the air thick with tension. Harv stepped forward, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Hey, kid, you hurt?" he asked. The question broke the uneasy quiet, and Lily shook her head, unable to find her voice. She had survived the crash with only minor scrapes, a small miracle in itself. Harv studied her for a moment, then turned to the others. "Looks like she was left behind." The revelation sparked a murmur among the crowd. Zara 9 was no place for a child, especially one so young and vulnerable. The planet's dangers were numerous, from the hostile creatures that roamed the wilds to the ruthless gangs that controlled the settlements. As the settlers debated what to do, a growing unease settled over them. They knew of only one who might take an interest in the child, and it wasn't a comforting thought. "The beast might take her," someone muttered, barely loud enough to be heard. The word sent a shiver through the group. Zur, the exiled beast, was a figure of fear and legend. While she kept to herself, her presence was a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked on Zara 9. The idea of offering the girl to her seemed both a desperate act of self-preservation and a potential way to appease the mysterious figure. Harv frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the suggestion. "We don't know what she might do," he warned, but his voice lacked conviction. The settlers were divided, torn between their fear of Zyra and their unwillingness to abandon a child to such an uncertain fate. As they argued, Lily watched with wide eyes, clutching her bear as if it were her lifeline. In the end, practicality won out over compassion. The settlers, driven by their own fears and the harsh realities of their world, decided to leave Lily at the edge of Zur's territory. They hoped that the beast would take her in, or at the very least not harm her. It was a gamble, but in a place like Zara 9, survival often came down to taking risks. Under the cover of darkness, Harv led a small group to the boundary of Zyra's territory. They carried Lily, who had remained silent throughout the journey, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and resignation. The group stopped at the edge of a dense forest where the trees twisted in unnatural shapes, their branches clawing at the sky. It was the threat threshold to Zur's domain, a place few dared to cross. Harv knelt before Lily, his expression softening. "Stay here, kid, something will find you," he said not unkindly. He hesitated, then placed a small bag of supplies next to her. It wasn't much, some food, water, and a blanket, but it was all they could spare. He gave her a nod, then rose to his feet, signaling the others to leave. As the settlers retreated, Lily stood alone at the forest's edge, the shadows deepening around her. She clutched her bear and the small bag, her heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea what awaited her, only that she was alone on a strange and dangerous planet. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back, determined to be brave. Meanwhile, deep within her fortress, Zara felt a subtle shift in the air. Her senses, honed by years of isolation and survival, detected the presence of something new. She paused in her nightly meditation, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the disturbance. There was an unfamiliar energy, faint but distinct, drawing her attention. Curiosity piqued, Zara rose from her meditation chamber and donned her armor, a sleek alien design that melded with her form. She moved silently through the fortress, her steps sure and purposeful. As she reached the main hall, she paused, her gaze fixed on the door leading to the outside world. She hesitated, then pushed it open, stepping into the night. The forest loomed before her, its dark canopy obscuring the sky. Zara inhaled deeply, her heightened senses picking up the faint scent of something human. Intrigued, she followed the scent, her movements graceful and silent, as she approached the edge of her territory. She spotted a small figure huddled near a tree. It was a child, a human girl, tiny and frail. Looking, Zara tilted her head, studying the girl with a mix of curiosity and caution. The child, seemingly unaware of her presence, was too preoccupied with her own fear. Zara's eyes, glowing faintly in the darkness, softened as she watched. There was no malice in her gaze, only a deep, unspoken sadness. For the first time in years, Zara felt a stir of emotion, an unexpected pang of empathy. She stepped closer, her form emerging from the shadows. Lily looked up, her eyes widening as she saw the tall, silver-skinned figure before her. There was a moment of silence, a breathless pause, as the two stared at each other. Zara knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's level, and reached out her hand, hovering just above the girl's shoulder. Lily flinched but didn't pull away, her gaze locked on Zara's deep blue eyes filled with a quiet intensity that held no threat. Slowly and gently, Zara placed her hand on Lily's shoulder, a gesture of reassurance. Lily's fear melted into something else, curiosity, perhaps even a glimmer of hope. In that brief moment, the boundaries between them blurred, and they were simply two lost souls finding solace in each other's presence. Zara stood up, her decision made. She gestured for Lily to follow, and the girl hesitated only for a moment before stepping forward. Together, they walked into the forest, the darkness swallowing them whole. The night was silent, save for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of nocturnal creatures. As they disappeared into the shadows, the residents of Zara 9 could only wonder what fate awaited the girl and the exiled beast in the days to come. Whispers would spread through the settlements, tales of the beast and the girl who dared to approach her, but for now, as the stars shone down on the lonely planet, a new chapter was beginning, one that neither Zara nor Lily could have anticipated. The first light of dawn filtered through the dense canopy of the forest, casting a soft glow over the ground. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of the woods. Zara led Lily deeper into her territory, their path wound through towering trees and thick underbrush. Lily's small footsteps crunched softly on the fallen leaves, her teddy bear clutched tightly in her arms. Zara moved with quiet grace, her eyes and ears attuned to the subtle sounds of the forest. She glanced back at Lily occasionally, ensuring that the girl kept pace despite her fear and exhaustion. Lily followed with determined steps, her curiosity about the alien growing with each passing moment. After what felt like hours, they arrived at the fortress, a massive structure carved into the side of a cliff, with walls that seemed to meld seamlessly with the rock. Vines and moss covered parts of it, giving it an ancient, almost mystical appearance. Zara led Lily through the large entrance, the heavy doors creaking as they closed behind them. Inside, the fortress was surprisingly warm and welcoming. The main hall was lit by soft ambient light emanating from crystals embedded in the walls. The space was filled with relics and artifacts from Zara's home world, beautiful, intricate designs that spoke of a culture steeped in art and history. Lily's eyes widened as she took in the sight, her fear momentarily forgotten. Zara guided Lily to a small chamber off the main hall. The room was cozy, with a simple bed, a table, and a few chairs. A large window offered a view of the forest outside, letting in natural light. Zara gestured for Lily to sit on the bed, and the girl obeyed, still clutching her bear. The alien knelt before her, studying her with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Are you hurt?" Zara asked, her voice soft but resonant. It was the first time Lily had heard her speak, and she was surprised by the gentle tone. Lily shook her head. "No, I'm okay," she replied in a small but steady voice. "Thank you for helping me." Zara nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "You are welcome," she said simply. She then stood up and moved to a small cupboard, retrieving some food and water. She handed them to Lily, who accepted them gratefully. As Lily ate, Zur watched her, her mind racing with questions. Why had the settlers left her here? What had happened to her family? And most importantly, what was she to do with this child? Despite her exile and the fearsome reputation she had earned, Zur felt a strange kinship with Lily. The girl's vulnerability and innocence stirred something deep within her, a protective instinct she had long thought buried. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's presence became a natural part of Zara's daily life. The alien taught her about the forest, showing her which plants were safe to eat and which to avoid. She introduced her to the various creatures that inhabited the woods, teaching her how to read their behavior and respect their territory. In return, Lily shared stories of her own, tales of Earth, her family, and the adventures she had dreamed of. Despite the initial fear and hesitation, a bond grew between them. Zur found herself opening up to the girl, sharing stories of her own past, her home world, and the reasons for her exile. Lily listened with wide-eyed wonder, her youthful imagination painting vivid pictures of the alien landscapes and the epic battles Zur described. One evening, as they sat by the fire in the main hall, Lily looked up at Zur with a thoughtful expression. "Do you miss your home?" she asked softly. Zur paused and sighed, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "Every day," she admitted, "but I have found some peace here and now, with you. I am reminded of the good things I left behind." Lily smiled, her small hand reaching out to touch Zur's. "I'm glad I met you," she said simply. As the days passed, the residents of Zara 9 began to notice the change. They saw less of Zyra's fearsome presence and more of the curious, playful interactions between her and Lily. Whispers spread through the settlements, tales of the beast tamed by a child's innocence. Some viewed it with suspicion, others, with a glimmer of hope. One day, a group of settlers led by Harv ventured closer to Zara's territory. They carried supplies and gifts, a tentative peace offering. Harv, representing the more pragmatic side of the fringe, believed that forming a truce with Zur might benefit everyone. They approached the edge of the forest cautiously, calling out to announce their presence. Zur and Lily heard the call and made their way to the edge of the territory. Zur stood tall and imposing, her protective instincts on high alert, while Lily stayed close by her side. Harv stepped forward, bowing slightly as a sign of respect. "We come in peace," he began in a steady voice. "We wish to offer our thanks for caring for the girl and to propose a truce. Perhaps we can help each other." Zur's eyes narrowed as she considered his words. She glanced down at Lily, who gave her an encouraging nod. With a deep breath, Zur turned back to Harv. "Very well," she said. "We will listen." The settlers and Zur talked for hours, discussing ways to coexist and help each other. They agreed to exchange goods and information, with Zur offering her protection and knowledge of the forest in return for supplies and news from the settlements. It was a fragile alliance, but it was a start. As the meeting concluded, Harv approached Lily. "You've made quite an impact here," he said with a smile. "We're glad you're safe." Lily beamed. "Thank you, Mr. Harv. I'm happy here with Zur." With the truce in place, life on Zara 9 began to change. The settlers grew bolder, venturing into the forest with Zara's guidance. They discovered new resources and learned to navigate the dangers of the planet more effectively. The alliance, though still tentative, brought a sense of hope and cooperation that had long been absent. For Zyra and Lily, the days were filled with discovery and growth. The alliance, though still tentative, brought a sense of hope and cooperation that had long been absent. For Zyra and Lily, the days were filled with discovery and growth. Zur found solace in teaching and protecting the girl, while Lily thrived under her care, growing stronger and more confident with each passing day. The bond they shared was unbreakable, forged in the crucible of a harsh and unforgiving world. But as the months passed, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. A distant ship, seeking resources and drawn by rumors of Zara 9's hidden wealth, was making its way towards the planet. Its arrival would test the fragile peace and force Zyra and Lily to confront their deepest fears. Unbeknownst to them, their journey was far from over, and the true test of their bond and resilience was yet to come. As the stars shone down on Zara 9, a sense of foreboding settled over the planet, heralding the trials that lay ahead. The arrival of the distant ship loomed like an ominous shadow over Zara 9. It was a merchant vessel, larger and more advanced than any the settlers had seen in recent memory. Word of its approach spread quickly, stirring a mix of excitement and anxiety among the inhabitants. Some hoped it would bring supplies and news from other worlds, while others feared it would bring trouble. Zur and Lily were unaware of the impending arrival until a settler from the fringe, breathless and panicked, came running to their fortress. He carried a message from Harv, urging them to prepare for potential danger. The ship's intentions were unknown, but given the planet's reputation, it was wise to be cautious. As the day progressed, Zur watched the sky from the fortress's balcony, her expression thoughtful and tense. Lily stood beside her, sensing the unease in the air. "What's going to happen?" Lily asked in a voice barely above a whisper. Zur sighed, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we must be prepared for anything." She turned to Lily, her eyes softening. "No matter what happens, I will protect you." Lily nodded, a determined look on her face. "And I'll be brave," she promised. As the sun began to set, the ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, landing just outside the boundaries of the fringe. The settlers gathered nervously, keeping a safe distance, as the ship's ramp lowered. A group of well-armed mercenaries emerged, followed by a man in a sleek, tailored suit. He introduced himself as Captain Varon, a trader and emissary from a distant colony. Varon addressed the settlers in a smooth, confident voice, claiming to be a friend, offering trade and assistance in exchange for cooperation, but there was a hidden edge to his words, a subtle threat that made the settlers uneasy. They had seen his type before, men who spoke of peace but dealt in power and control. Harv stepped forward, speaking on behalf of the settlers. He explained the situation on Zara 9 and mentioned Zur and Lily, hoping to establish a peaceful rapport. Varon listened intently, his eyes narrowing at the mention of the beast. His curiosity piqued as he inquired about Zur, expressing a desire to meet her. The settlers hesitated, unsure of Varon's intentions. Harv, sensing the danger, tried to dissuade him, but Varon was insistent. He made it clear that he would not leave without seeing the infamous exiled beast and the child who had reportedly tamed her. Reluctantly, Harv led Varon and a small group of mercenaries towards the fortress. Zur and Lily watched from a distance as the group approached. Zur's eyes narrowed and her senses were on high alert. She could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken threat that accompanied the newcomers. She turned to Lily, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Stay close to me," Zur instructed. Lily nodded, clutching her teddy bear tightly. As Varon and his men entered the fortress's courtyard, they stopped at the sight of Zyra. The mercenaries shifted uneasily, their hands hovering near their weapons. Varon, however, seemed unfazed. He stepped forward, offering a polite bow. "Zur, the exiled beast," he said. "It is an honor to meet you." Zur studied him, her expression unreadable. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice cold and steady. Varon smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "I come with an offer," he began. "We are willing to take the child with us. Zara 9 is no place for a little girl, and we can provide her with a safer environment, a proper upbringing." Lily's eyes widened in fear, and she instinctively moved closer to Zara. The alien's expression hardened, her protective instincts flaring. "She stays with me," Zur replied firmly. Varon's smile didn't waver, but there was a hard edge to his voice. "Are you certain a child deserves a chance at a better life? And you're in exile. What future can you offer her?" The question hung in the air, a challenge and a taunt. Zur's jaw tightened, her mind racing. She knew Varon's type, opportunists who preyed on the vulnerable. She glanced at Lily, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision before her. She could see the fear in the girl's eyes, the uncertainty of a life she had grown to care deeply for. After a tense moment, Zara made her decision. She stepped forward, standing tall and resolute. "Lily is not a bargaining chip," she stated, her voice cold as steel. "She stays with me, where she is safe." Varon's smile faltered, a flash of frustration crossing his face. He gestured to his men, who immediately raised their weapons. The settlers watching from a distance gasped, tension crackling in the air. Harv stepped forward, trying to intervene, but Varon silenced him with a glare. Zara's eyes blazed with a cold fire as she stood protectively in front of Lily, her stance a clear warning, a reminder of the power she wielded. The mercenaries hesitated, unsure whether to proceed. Varon, however, was not deterred. He knew that a direct confrontation with the beast could be dangerous, but he was willing to take the risk. Before the situation could escalate further, a sudden noise broke the tension from the shadows. A group of settlers emerged, armed with makeshift weapons. They positioned themselves between Varon's men and the fortress, a silent show of solidarity with Zur and Lily. Harv stood among them, his expression grim and determined. Varon glanced around, assessing the situation. He was outnumbered and facing an unpredictable opponent. Reluctantly, he signaled his men to lower their weapons. "Very well," he said, his voice tight with barely concealed anger. "It seems the girl stays." Zur remained silent, her eyes locked on Varon. She knew he would not forget this slight, but for now, the immediate threat had passed. Varon turned to leave, but not before casting a final lingering look at Lily. "Remember this," he warned in a low, dangerous voice, "you cannot protect her forever." With that, Varon and his men retreated, leaving the fortress and its inhabitants in uneasy silence. The settlers, relieved but wary, dispersed back to their homes. Harv approached Zur and Lily, offering a small, reassuring smile. "You did well," he said warmly. "We'll keep an eye on them, make sure they don't cause any more trouble." Zur nodded, her expression softening as she looked down at Lily. The girl had remained brave throughout the ordeal, her small frame trembling only slightly. Zur knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" she asked. Lily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I was scared," she admitted in a voice barely above a whisper, "but I knew you wouldn't let them take me." Zur's heart swelled with a mix of pride and sorrow as she pulled Lily into a gentle embrace. "I will always protect you," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. As the evening settled in, Zur and Lily returned to the fortress. The encounter with Varon had left them both shaken, but their bond was stronger than ever. They knew that the challenges ahead would not be easy, but together they could face whatever came their way. In the days that followed, life on Zara 9 slowly returned to a semblance of normality. The settlers remained vigilant, wary of Varon's potential return, while Zur continued to watch over Lily, teaching her more about survival and the ways of the world. The girl grew stronger and more confident, her bond with Zara deepening with each passing day. For Zur, the experience had been a reminder of the harsh realities of her exile and the dangers that lurked beyond the stars. Yet it had also shown her the strength of the connection she had formed with Lily, a connection that transcended their differences and the circumstances of their meeting. As they stood together on the balcony, gazing out at the stars, Lily looked up at Zur with a smile. "Do you think we'll ever leave Zara 9?" she asked, her voice filled with hope.